He vanished when fans needed him most. No goodbye. No clue, no reason. One day, Detective Charlie Hudson was chasing bad guys with Rex, and the next, he was gone. But behind the silence was a fight far greater than any case Hudson had ever faced, a fight for his life. And now, after months of fear, whispers, and heartbreak, John Reardon is finally back. But not as the same man who left. This is the story that will break you and rebuild your faith in strength, loyalty, and love. Asterisk before everything changed. Hudson and Rex was more than just a TV show. It was comfort, excitement, and loyalty wrapped into one story. A detective, his team, and a dog that could outsmart anyone. The show built a world that made people feel safe, even when chaos was everywhere. Every episode followed Detective Charlie Hudson, played by John Reardon, and his loyal partner Rex, a German shepherd with eyes full of intelligence and heart. Together, they solved crimes, rescued victims, and reminded audiences that good people still exist. What made it special wasn't just the cases, it was the bond. Hudson and Rex didn't just work together. They trusted each other like family. That trust became the emotional heartbeat of the series. Fans didn't tune in only to see who committed the crime. They tuned in to see that friendship, that quiet understanding between man and dog that said, "I've got your back." And that connection was real, both on and off the screen. John Reardon gave Charlie Hudson depth. He wasn't just another detective. He was human, thoughtful, kind, sometimes tired, always brave. He brought warmth to a world of cold investigations. It was this mix of realism and heart that made Hudson and Rex a show people returned to after long days. It reminded them of loyalty, of resilience, of companionship that never fades. Then Season 7 ended. Fans were excited, speculating about what would happen next, new cases, emotional turns, maybe a bigger spotlight on Hudson's personal life. But when production updates slowed down and interviews stopped, whispers began to grow. Something wasn't right. Where was John Reardon? Why wasn't he appearing in early promos? Why did the studio stay so quiet? At first, most people thought it was scheduling, maybe another project or a break. But the silence lasted too long. Weeks turned into months. The absence was too heavy to ignore. Clips of the show without Hudson felt empty, like a song missing its melody. Fans flooded social media, asking, worrying, pleading for answers, but nothing came. Behind the scenes, however, something much deeper was happening. Away from the lights and scripts, John Reardon was facing a real-life battle no detective training could prepare him for. While the world saw absence, what was really happening was a test of strength, one that would change him and his fans forever. But before that truth surfaced, the Hudson and Rex world stood still. The set was quieter. Rex's handler noticed the difference. The dog seemed restless without his familiar partner. Crew members whispered about delays. Producers avoided confirming anything publicly. The show that had always been about loyalty suddenly faced the pain of uncertainty. And for the fans who had grown with Hudson and Rex, that uncertainty hurt the most. Because Hudson and Rex wasn't just fiction to them, it was hope. That presence, even for a while, felt like losing a part of their lives. But what no one knew was that John wasn't gone for good. He was fighting, quietly, bravely, away from the cameras. He was preparing for a comeback that no one saw coming, one that would bring tears, strength, and a new meaning to the phrase, "never give up." Asterisk, it started like a whisper, small, uncertain, easy to ignore. A few missed interviews here, a postponed shoot there. At first, no one thought much of it. Actors take breaks all the time. Maybe John Reardon was just catching his breath after another demanding season of Hudson and Rex. But soon, the whispers turned into worry. He wasn't on set. His name wasn't mentioned in updates. The cheerful behind-the-scenes posts stopped. Suddenly, the man who had brought Detective Charlie Hudson to life seemed to vanish into thin air. The absence felt strange, almost haunting. For fans, it was like watching a familiar world crumble in slow motion. Each new photo from the set looked a little emptier. Every scene without Hudson felt unfinished. Rex, the loyal German shepherd, who shared the screen with him, seemed to carry that same emptiness. His scenes felt heavier, lonelier, almost like he was waiting for someone who wasn't coming back. Inside the industry, people noticed too. Crew members spoke in half sentences. Journalists tried to ask, but the studio's answers were polite and vague. Scheduling conflicts, personal time, creative direction, phrases that said everything and nothing at once. The silence was louder than any statement could be. And in that silence, rumors began to grow like vines, some kind, others cruel. Fans filled online forums with theories. Some believed he was taking a break to focus on family. Others feared the worst illness, burnout, or something even more serious. One fan wrote, "Hudson without Rex is sad, but Rex without Hudson is unbearable." It wasn't just about missing an actor. It was about losing the heart of the show. Behind closed doors, a different kind of story was unfolding, one that would never make it to tabloid headlines. John wasn't avoiding the spotlight because he wanted to. He was fighting a private war inside his own body. The strong, calm detective who once stood fearless against danger was now facing something invisible and terrifying. Cancer, the diagnosis changed everything. Filming stopped. Scripts were rewritten. The world that had always revolved around cameras, lines, and deadlines suddenly faded away. His focus shifted to something far simpler, far more precious: staying alive. Days were filled with hospital visits, quiet mornings, and moments of reflection. He wasn't thinking about fame or reviews or the next season. He was thinking about time, how fragile it was, how easily it slipped away, and how much he wanted more of it. In the middle of this darkness, he kept his struggle private. There were no public statements, no media announcements. Only a few close friends and family members knew the truth. He didn't want pity. He didn't want headlines. He wanted to heal quietly away from the noise. That's who he's always been: grounded, humble, someone who believes strength isn't about being seen, but about holding on when no one's watching. Meanwhile, the Hudson and Rex team carried on with heavy hearts. Some days, the energy on set was off. Scenes felt mechanical. Laughter felt forced. Everyone missed him, but no one dared to speak it aloud. It was as if mentioning his name would make the fear real. The show went on, but it didn't feel the same. It was like trying to tell a story without its narrator. Months passed. Seasons changed. The rumor mill slowed down, but the ache remained. And just when people started to accept that maybe he was gone for good, something unexpected happened. A quiet post appeared online. No fanfare, no trailer. Just a message. "Thank you for your patience. See you soon." It was signed simply, John. That single line was enough to set the internet on fire. Fans cried. Cast members shared heart emojis. Hope returned. But beneath that calm message was a story of pain, courage, and transformation. Because coming back from what he'd been through wasn't just a return, it was a rebirth. Asterisk, when the truth finally surfaced, it didn't come as a headline or a press release. It arrived softly, like the sound of rain after a long drought, quiet, cleansing, and deeply human. John Reardon wasn't missing because he had lost interest or moved on to another project. He had been fighting something far more personal, something that doesn't care about fame, deadlines, or scripts. Cancer. For months, he carried that truth like a secret burden. The man who had spent years playing a character built on courage and loyalty now had to live those same traits in real life. There were no directors to call cut, no scripts to guide him through the pain. The real battle began in sterile hospital rooms. Under harsh fluorescent lights, where hope and fear shared the same space, John chose silence. Not because he wanted to hide, but because he wanted to protect. Protect his family from panic, his fans from worry, and perhaps himself from pity. To him, illness didn't define a person. How they faced it did. Those close to him described his strength as quiet but steady, the kind that doesn't shout but refuses to break. Days turned into weeks of tests, treatments, and uncertainty. Some mornings, he woke up determined. Others, too tired to move. There were moments when he wanted to give up, when even hope felt heavy. But every time something inside him, that same persistence fans saw in Detective Hudson, pushed him forward. One more day, he told himself. Just one more. The outside world moved on. New shows aired, new stories trended. But somewhere in that stillness, John Reardon was rebuilding himself piece by piece. The laughter that once filled sets was replaced by the quiet hum of hospital machines. His fight wasn't glamorous. It was raw, messy, and brutally real. There were scars, some visible, others buried deep within. But through every wave of pain, he held on to one thing: the idea that this wasn't the end of his story. He found comfort in small moments, morning light spilling through the blinds, the smell of coffee, a message from a co-star saying, "We miss you." And perhaps most of all, the thought of Rex, the loyal dog who had become his partner, not just on screen, but in spirit. "If Rex were here," he once joked to a friend, "he'd probably drag me out of bed and make me fight." That humor, fragile yet defiant, became his armor. As treatment went on, his world grew smaller, but clearer. The rush of filming was replaced by gratitude for each breath, each heartbeat. He realized how fragile the line between normal and extraordinary really was. The man who had spent years portraying resilience was now learning what it truly meant. And in that quiet battle, far from the cameras, John discovered something deeper. That survival isn't just about living. It's about choosing to keep believing that life still has more to give. When the doctors finally said the words "in remission," it wasn't the triumphant moment you'd see on screen. It was quiet, almost uncertain. He smiled, but the emotion ran deeper than words. He had seen darkness and walked through it. And though his body was healing, his soul carried the weight of everything he had endured. He didn't announce his victory to the world. He didn't need to. Those who knew him understood that his silence wasn't emptiness, it was peace. He had earned his return, not just as an actor, but as a survivor, and as he looked toward the possibility of returning to Hudson and Rex, one thought stayed with him. Maybe my story can help someone else keep fighting. The first day he stepped back on set didn't feel like a grand comeback. It felt like coming home after a storm. The air was different, charged with quiet emotion. Crew members stopped what they were doing. Conversations froze. Even Rex, the ever-professional canine star, broke character the moment he saw him. His tail wagged uncontrollably, his body trembling with excitement. John Reardon smiled, that same calm, genuine smile fans had missed for so long. He knelt down, hugged Rex, and whispered, "Told you I'd come back, partner." That moment said more than any press release ever could. There were no cameras rolling, no scripted lines, just raw, unfiltered emotion. It wasn't just an actor returning to work. It was a man reclaiming a part of himself that illness had tried to take away. When filming resumed, there was a different kind of energy on set. The laughter was softer, the silences heavier, but everything felt more real. Every scene he shot carried an invisible weight, the awareness that just being there was a victory. The way he looked at Rex, the way he delivered each line, it all carried something deeper. It wasn't acting anymore. It was gratitude disguised as performance. The cast noticed it too. During breaks, the crew often found themselves quietly watching him, inspired by the strength that didn't need words. One of his co-stars later said, "You could feel it, the whole room just shifted." He came back different, wiser, lighter, like someone who had seen the edge and decided to live fully again. John didn't talk much about what he'd been through. He didn't need to. His presence told the story. The small details, the longer pauses, the softer tone, the glances toward Rex all revealed a man who understood time differently now. Every second mattered. Every scene was a gift. The first episode of Hudson and Rex Season 8, featuring his return, aired on a quiet Sunday evening. There was no huge marketing push, no flashy premiere. Just a simple announcement: Detective Hudson is back. And that was enough. Within minutes, social media exploded. Fans flooded the internet with messages of joy, relief, and tears. "He made it," one wrote. "You can see it in his eyes. That's real strength." Watching himself on screen again was surreal for John. The lights, The dialogue, the rhythm of the show, it all felt familiar, but somehow new. He once described it as acting in color after living in black and white. Every frame felt alive. Every moment with Rex carried unspoken meaning, a promise that no matter how hard life gets, loyalty and love can pull you back. But what truly made his return special wasn't the performance, it was what it represented. He wasn't just playing a detective who never gave up. He was living proof of resilience, of second chances, of what happens when you refuse to surrender. Behind the scenes, the crew celebrated quietly. A small cake appeared in the break room, decorated with the words, "Welcome back, John." He didn't make a big speech. He just smiled, looked around at his team, and said, "Thank you for waiting." It was a short sentence, but everyone in that room felt the weight of it. Because they hadn't just waited for their co-star, they had waited for hope. And as the cameras rolled again, something felt whole. Hudson and Rex were back together. The cases would continue, the adventures would go on. But this time, every scene carried a truth that no script could capture, that even when life brings you to your knees, there's always a way to stand again. Asterisk, something changed in the air after John Reardon came back. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, but you could feel it everywhere in the tone of the show. In the way fans spoke online, even in the heartbeat of Hudson and Rex itself. His return wasn't just an actor resuming a role. It was a message, whispered straight into the hearts of millions. You can fall, and still find your way back. The show that once focused on solving crimes suddenly felt deeper. It was no longer just about catching bad guys. It was about survival, loyalty, and the invisible battles people fight when the cameras aren't rolling. Viewers noticed it immediately. The way Hudson looked at Rex now carried a different kind of weight. There was pain behind his eyes, but also peace, the kind that comes only after you face something you thought might break you. Even the writing seemed to shift. The new episodes explored themes of loss, hope, and healing more honestly than ever before. It was as if life had quietly rewritten the script. And every time John delivered a line about courage or second chances, you could feel that it wasn't just acting, it was lived experience bleeding into the story. Fans felt it too. Social media turned into a wave of emotion. People who had never met him were crying in front of their screens. Some shared their own stories, parents in recovery, survivors of illness, people who had lost loved ones but found comfort in seeing someone come back from the dark. Comments filled with gratitude poured in. "I'm fighting cancer too. Seeing John on screen gives me strength. He's not just Hudson anymore. He's all of us who refuse to give up." It wasn't only the fans who were changed. His co-stars began to see their own work differently. They spoke about how his presence reminded them that acting isn't about pretending, it's about feeling. One crew member said, "We used to show up for work. Now we show up with purpose." The energy on set became gentler, more patient. People smiled more. They listened more. They appreciated the little things, like coffee breaks and late-night shoots, because they'd watched what it meant to almost lose them. And Rex, even he seemed to understand. Animals have a way of sensing truth. The bond between them was stronger than ever. No longer just a trained partnership, but something spiritual. There were moments when Rex would nudge John between takes, resting his head on his lap as if to say, "You did it. You came back." Those unscripted moments became the soul of Season 8. When the season aired, critics noticed the difference too. They called it the most heartfelt chapter of Hudson and Rex yet. But fans didn't need reviews to tell them that. They could feel it. They weren't just watching entertainment anymore. They were watching a man who had lived through pain and turned it into light. It's rare for a TV show to reach beyond the screen, to touch something real in the people who watch it. But that's what John's return did. It reminded everyone that heroes aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who come back anyway. For many viewers, Hudson and Rex became more than just a show again. It became a mirror reflecting resilience, loyalty, and the beauty of starting over. And for John, every episode was a quiet thank you to the fans who waited, the crew who believed, and the life that gave him a second chance. As the season continued, one truth became clear. The comeback wasn't just about John Reardon. It was about all of us, the parts of ourselves that fall apart and somehow find the courage to heal. Some stories don't end with applause. They end with silence, the kind that holds meaning, the kind that lets you breathe again. John Reardon's story is one of those. His return wasn't about fame or ratings or headlines. It was about something much simpler, much purer, coming back to life. As the final episode of Hudson and Rex Season 8 rolled to its closing scene, the camera lingered on John's face a little longer than usual. There was a stillness there, a look that said everything words couldn't. It wasn't the confident detective we'd seen before. It was a man who had walked through fear and come out the other side, softer, wiser, unbroken. The moment Rex pressed his head against his shoulder, it didn't feel like acting. It felt like goodbye and hello at the same time. Viewers around the world sat in silence when the credits began to roll. Many didn't realize they were crying until the screen went dark. It wasn't just about the show anymore. It was about them, their battles, their pain, their own quiet fights. In watching John stand tall again, they saw a reflection of themselves. Behind the scenes, John stayed humble. He never called himself an inspiration. He never wanted pity or praise. But he couldn't hide the fact that his story had touched millions. Fan letters poured in, not about Hudson's cases or funny scenes, but about survival. A mother wrote, "You helped my son believe that his illness doesn't define him." Another said, "My dad watched Hudson and Rex with me from his hospital bed. Seeing you fight made him smile again."